"That's my daughter." The room froze as the billionaire owner stepped forward, his voice calm but cutting through the noise like thunder. "What just happened? Where in the world are you watching from today? New York, Lagos, London? Drop your city in the comments below." At first glance, she was just a black waitress humiliated by a wealthy guest in a luxury hotel. But no one expected the powerful man behind the scenes to reveal that. Tonight's story is more than drama. It's a wake-up call about class, power, and dignity. What would you have done if you were in her shoes? Stay with us to the end, because what starts as a moment of public shame becomes a stunning turn of justice that leaves millions speechless. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more real stories that hit deep. And let us know if you saw the twist coming. This one, you'll remember. The Crystal Haven Hotel stood like a jewel in the heart of Miami's bustling downtown, its shimmering glass facade catching the last hues of the setting sun. Inside, the grand dining hall glowed like something out of a dream. Gold light spilled from chandeliers that hung like constellations above the polished marble floor, casting star-like reflections on the crystal stemware below. The air smelled of aged wine, white truffle, and polished opulence. It was the kind of place where everything gleamed, where time moved a little slower, and every whisper carried the weight of money. But amid the glitter and the clinking glasses, there moved a figure who didn't belong to the world of designer gowns and investment portfolios, yet belonged more than any of them would ever know. Amara Brooks weaved between the tables like a dancer trained in silence and precision. At just 24, she bore herself with the calm grace of someone much older. Her deep mahogany skin caught the warm chandelier light like velvet, and her dark eyes, though tired, sparkled with quiet fire. She wore the hotel's black and white server uniform with dignity, though it clung to her from a long, exhausting double shift. Her flats pinched her heels and every step ached, but she never let it show. The 5-star reputation of Crystal Haven demanded perfection, and Amara delivered it, tray after tray, smile after smile. She wasn't invisible, but to most guests, she might as well have been, except they noticed her beauty. They always did. What no one noticed, what no one could have guessed, was that Amara didn't need this job. She didn't need the modest paycheck or the aching feet or the long nights wiping up rich people's messes. She was the daughter of Malcolm Brooks, a billionaire real estate mogul whose empire stretched up the East Coast like a spine of glass and steel. She had never bragged about it, never slipped up, not once. To the staff, she was simply Amara, the one who always took the late shift without complaint, who covered for sick co-workers, who never cut corners. She had insisted on using her mother's last name, had begged her father not to interfere. And though Malcolm had winced at the thought of his daughter lifting heavy trays and bowing to people who would never know her worth, he had respected her wish, with one condition: he would always be nearby just in case, watching from the shadows. Amara didn't do this to prove a point to anyone else. It wasn't a rebellion. It was a revelation. She wanted to understand the world without filters. She wanted to feel how people treated someone they didn't think mattered. She wanted to earn something. Her hands, though manicured, were used to work. Her heart, though full of dreams, was grounded in purpose. So tonight, like every other, she moved among the elite, her smile steady, her posture upright, her pride buried deep beneath her professionalism. Across the room, a quartet played soft jazz, barely audible beneath the low hum of conversation, and the occasional laugh too loud to belong in a room like this. Amara approached table 14, where a silver-haired couple nodded approvingly at the amuse-bouche she had just delivered. "Exquisite," the woman said, dabbing the corner of her mouth with a linen. "Tell the chef, won't you?" Amara bowed slightly and promised she would. Moments like these made the night bearable. Small acts of kindness, rare as they were. Still, they never pierced the veil of distance. She was always the girl, or young lady, or worse, you. There, never Amara. Back in the service station, she refilled glasses with the practiced rhythm of someone who had learned to move without thought. Her colleague Jamal passed behind her with a wink. "Almost done?" he whispered. "Still got 2 hours." She replied, then smiled. "But who's counting?" The banter helped. It reminded her she wasn't alone. And yet, even with friendly faces around, there was a solitude to the role, an invisible line drawn between the served and the serving. Amara knew it better than anyone. She had lived on both sides. The clock ticked toward 8 p.m. The pace quickened. New reservations were coming in, some names familiar. Local celebrities, influencers, hedge fund heirs. Amara checked the seating chart again, wiping a smudge from her apron. Her next table was in the east corner, one often reserved for VIPs. A flicker of anticipation passed through her. Not because of who she would serve, but because of how she would serve them. To her, every table was a stage, every gesture a chance to perfect her craft. She lived in the details, how the silverware aligned, how the glass caught the light, how to set down a dish without a sound. And then, the energy in the room shifted, subtle like a temperature change. The host at the entrance straightened. A murmur ran through the nearby staff. Amara turned and saw her. A tall blonde in a sculpted emerald dress, diamonds glinting at her throat, heels clicking against the marble like a slow drum roll. Vanessa Carlyle, a name Amara recognized from magazines and whispered gossip. Heiress, influencer, socialite, trouble. Her reputation preceded her, a trail of rudeness, privilege, and headlines that were more spectacle than substance. She didn't walk into a room. She arrived like she owned it. Vanessa barely acknowledged the host as she was guided to the prime table in the east corner. She sat, crossed her legs with precision, and pulled out her phone before the chair had even settled. Her fingers tapped the screen, her eyes never lifting. Amara inhaled quietly, steadied her tray, and walked toward the table. This was just another guest, she told herself. Another order. Another moment to do her job with pride. But something in her gut twisted, just slightly. She approached with her warmest voice, the same one that had charmed angry customers and soothed the most impossible of clients. "Good evening, ma'am. Welcome to Crystal Haven. May I get you?" "Started with something to drink?" Her tone was even, professional. She stood tall despite the fatigue that pulled at her shoulders. Vanessa didn't look up. "Sparkling water, no ice, and make it quick. I don't have all night." The words weren't sharp, they were dull, like something she said 100 times a day. Like Amara wasn't even there. Just a shadow, just a tool. She flicked her hand dismissively, her gaze never leaving her phone. Amara paused for the briefest second. Then she nodded. "Yes, ma'am," and turned to get the drink. But something about the moment, the chill in Vanessa's tone, the way she didn't bother to glance up, lodged itself in Amara's chest. It was subtle, but it was there. The same reminder that echoed in rooms like this every night. No matter how perfectly you play your role, some people only see the uniform, not the woman wearing it. And as the jazz played on, and the wine poured, and the laughter swirled beneath the chandeliers, Amara carried a single glass of sparkling water back to table 14, unaware that within the next few minutes everything would shift. Not just for her, but for everyone watching. Vanessa Carlyle sat like a statue sculpted out of entitlement, her posture perfect, her fingers tapping out silent commands to her digital kingdom. The soft glow of her phone screen illuminated her, sharp cheekbones, and her diamond necklace sparkled with every minor tilt of her head, catching the chandelier's light as if demanding applause. She didn't look up. She didn't have to. In her mind, the world, this hotel, this dining hall, the very air around her, existed solely to accommodate her presence. She wasn't rude. She was dismissive. The kind of dismissive that didn't need words, because her silence shouted louder. Amara approached with steady hands and quiet grace, balancing a silver tray with a single glass of sparkling water, condensation tracing lazy lines down the side. Amara reached the table and gently placed the drink down on the linen cloth, aligning it just to the right of Vanessa's untouched cutlery. "Here you are, ma'am," she said softly, her voice calm, practiced. But just as she was about to step back, Vanessa, eyes still glued to her phone, reached out to grab the glass without looking. Her hand knocked the rim. In a flash, the water toppled. A cold splash hit the table, ran across the polished surface, and cascaded onto Amara's front. Her blouse clung instantly to her skin. A collective gasp rose from nearby tables like the sharp inhale before thunder. The jazz band faltered for a second, just a half beat but enough to mark the shift. Vanessa blinked, finally looking up. Her blue eyes narrowed not with concern but with irritation, as though she were the one inconvenienced. "Oh, for heaven's sake," she barked, her voice slicing clean through the buzz of the room. "Can't you do anything right?" The words landed like a slap. Heads turned. A woman in pearls at the next table paused with her fork halfway to her mouth. A man across the room lowered his wineglass, brow furrowed. Amara froze, her hands wet, her chest damp and stinging from the sudden cold. But more than the physical discomfort was the weight of every eye now on her, the heat of humiliation rising fast under her skin. Still, she kept her voice level. "I'm very sorry, ma'am. Let me get you another—" Vanessa raised her hand as if to swat the apology away. "Do they hire just anyone here?" she said with a sneer, leaning back in her chair. "Honestly, you're a walking disaster. I come to this hotel for excellence, not incompetence." Her voice rang out, full of exaggerated exasperation, carefully projected for maximum audience impact. And she was getting one. A few guests looked away, awkwardly, pretending not to hear. Others didn't bother. One young woman discreetly tilted her phone, camera app open. Amara knelt slightly, dabbing at the spill with a napkin from the bread plate, her movements mechanical, her face composed. "I'll clean this up right away," she said, eyes down. Not because she was ashamed, but because she refused to meet the gaze of someone who enjoyed cruelty. "And I'll have a fresh glass brought over, no charge." Vanessa laughed, a sharp, delighted sound loud enough to cut across the murmurs. "Oh, how generous of you. On the house, as if that makes up for your mess. Sweetheart, girls. Like you don't belong in places like this. You're clearly out of your depth. Stick to fast food or, what's the word, basic service." She tilted her head, mock sympathy in her eyes. "This place is above your level." The insult wasn't loud, but it was razor sharp, and it sliced clean through Amara's restraint. She didn't flinch. She didn't argue. She simply rose, slowly, standing in her damp uniform with dignity radiating from every pore. Her eyes met Vanessa's, calm, clear, and far more powerful than rage. "Yes, ma'am. I'll have that drink replaced right away," she repeated, and she turned, walking back toward the kitchen. But Vanessa wasn't done. She reached for the glass of red wine that had just been placed on her table. With a calculated flick of her wrist, she hurled it toward Amara's retreating back. The stemware clinked sharply as it hit the floor, the wine exploding across Amara's shirt and skirt like blood on snow. A collective groan rose from the room. Someone audibly gasped. The wine ran in crimson rivulets down her back, soaking into the hem of her apron, staining the pristine marble tiles beneath her. Vanessa burst into laughter, a high-pitched, delighted cackle. "Maybe that will teach you to pay attention," she called out, still seated, still smirking. Her voice echoed, triumphant, daring anyone to challenge her. Amara stopped in place. Her hands trembled, not from fear, and not entirely from shock, but from the sheer restraint it took to keep standing. Her breath caught in her throat. For a brief moment she stared straight ahead, her back to Vanessa, the hum of the dining room swirling around her like static. And then she inhaled, deep, steady, and continued walking head held high. No one could say she stormed off. She did not rush. She did not crumble. She carried her soaked uniform like armor. Back at her station, Jamal stared at her, eyes wide. "What the hell just happened?" he whispered. But Amara said nothing. She just hung the soiled towel on the counter, shoulders square, and reached for a fresh cloth. Behind her, the kitchen door swung open and someone muttered, "Man, that woman's sick in the head." Phones buzzed, screens lit up. someone was already uploading the video clip. In moments, it would be everywhere. Out in the dining hall, Vanessa returned to her seat, lips pursed in satisfaction, chatting with a friend who had just arrived. "Honestly," she said, loud enough for half the room to hear, "some people just don't belong in places like this. She should be grateful she even had a job here." But something had shifted. The laughter that once echoed easily now felt out of place. The diners were watching, some in silence, some shaking their heads. A man near the window whispered to his wife, "That girl handled it better than I would have." And in the far corner, behind a frosted glass partition, a tall man in a navy suit set down his drink. His silver-flecked brows furrowed as his eyes followed Amara's retreat. Because for the first time all night, Malcolm Brooks wasn't focused on real estate contracts or expansion plans. He was watching something unfold, something deeply personal, something infuriating. And as he reached into his jacket and called for the manager, the air shifted once more. The storm had begun. The wine still dripped from Amara's uniform as she stood by the service station, the back of her blouse clinging to her skin like a soaked second layer. Her fingers were curled into her palm, her knuckles pale, but her expression betrayed nothing. The sting wasn't from the cold wine or the acidic scent now staining her clothes. It was from the laughter, that high-pitched, triumphant sound Vanessa had let out after hurling the drink was worse than the liquid itself. It wasn't a clumsy accident. It was a statement, a message to Amara and to everyone else watching. "I can do this to you, and you can do nothing in return." But Amara wasn't anything, and she knew it. What burned inside her wasn't shame, it was restraint. The kind of restraint to stand tall while someone tries to strip away your dignity in public. She didn't cry. She didn't flinch. She simply grabbed a fresh towel, pressed it against the worst of the red blotches now soaking into her white blouse, and told Jamal, "Cover table 14. I'll be back in a few." He nodded, still too stunned to say much else. From the corner of the kitchen, Chef Mario peeked out, his thick brows raised. "Everything okay?" Amara gave him a tight smile. "Peachy." And then she turned away before anyone could see the faintest shimmer in her eyes. Out in the dining hall, the atmosphere had shifted. The incident had cracked the surface of elegance like a fracture in glass. Patrons murmured behind linen napkins. Some glanced toward Vanessa, who now reclined in her chair with the relaxed satisfaction of someone who believed they had just executed the perfect takedown. She whispered something to her friend, and the two burst into soft giggles, oblivious to the energy brewing around them. But not everyone looked amused. A woman in a navy sheath dress whispered harshly to her husband, "She should be asked to leave." He nodded solemnly, eyes still fixed on Vanessa, as though trying to understand what kind of person would find glee in such cruelty. Malcolm Brooks had not moved from his booth, but his jaw was tight, his fingers steepled beneath his chin. He had watched every moment. The spilled water, the insults, the wine tossed like a weapon. And still, he hadn't intervened. Not yet. Amara had asked for space, for autonomy, for the right to walk her path without the shield of his name. But watching his daughter be humiliated before a room full of strangers was a line he hadn't been prepared to see crossed. Quiet power hummed. In his posture, he pressed a button on his phone and murmured a single word into the receiver. "Now." At that moment, Daniel, the hotel's manager, appeared at Vanessa's table. His tailored suit was crisp, but his eyes held tension. "Ms. Carlyle," he said with a tight smile, "Mr. Brooks would like to have a word with you." Vanessa blinked, mildly annoyed at the interruption. "Who?" she asked, not bothering to mask her irritation. "Malcolm Brooks," Daniel said, "the owner of Crystal Haven." A beat of silence passed, then Vanessa's brows lifted in interest. Oh, finally, someone who recognizes class when he sees it. She stood with deliberate grace, smoothed her emerald dress over her hips and followed Daniel, expecting compliments or at worst, an apology for having had to endure such subpar service. She never noticed the subtle stares following her. Some disapproving, some curious, all aware. Her heels clicked over the marble floor, rhythmic and proud. She didn't see Amara, who had slipped back into the kitchen, rinsing the wine from her hands and wiping down her arms with shaking fingers. As Vanessa was led into the private lounge, Malcolm stood. He was tall, statuesque in his navy suit, with silver threads at his temples and an expression carved from stone. Vanessa's confident stride faltered. Something in his eyes, calm but razor-sharp, made her straighten, then stumble on the words she'd rehearsed. "Mr. Brooks, I just wanted to say, I know exactly what you did," Malcolm interrupted, his tone soft but firm. "I watched it all." Vanessa's lips parted, but the air had thickened around them, and the words caught in her throat. "You came into my hotel, insulted my staff, assaulted one of them in front of witnesses, and then laughed about it." His voice didn't rise. He didn't need to yell. His authority was in the stillness, in the weight of his gaze. "And that staff member? She's not just an employee, she's my daughter." The sentence dropped like a stone into still water, sending ripples across everything Vanessa thought she understood about the evening. Her mouth opened, then shut. Her eyes darted toward the door, toward Daniel, toward anywhere but Malcolm's. Steady gaze. I didn't know," she stammered. "She spilled water." "I saw it," Malcolm said simply. "She didn't. You did. And when you embarrassed yourself, you blamed her. Then you threw wine at her. That's not a mistake, Ms. Carlyle. That's character." Vanessa's cheeks flushed a deep crimson, not from shame. She wasn't used to shame, but from exposure. Her game had played out in front of the wrong audience. Her power here, she realized, was an illusion. Back in the kitchen, Amara stood at the sink, scrubbing at the wine stain on her apron with a mixture of club soda and salt. Jamal appeared behind her. "Hey," he said quietly. "You should see what's going down out there." She didn't respond at first, just kept scrubbing. Then she looked up. "He's confronting her, isn't he?" Jamal nodded slowly. "He's not just confronting her, he's ending her." In the dining hall, guests were whispering, checking their phones. Clips of the incident had already gone viral. Snippets of Vanessa's taunts, her wine toss, Amara's quiet walk away. Hashtags were trending. Respect. The staff. Crystal Haven drama. Amara deserved better. The court of public opinion was awake, and it was furious. Vanessa stumbled backward a step, her voice cracking under the weight of judgment. "Mr. Brooks, please, I didn't mean to." Malcolm raised a hand, cutting her off. "Your bill is covered. Consider it a parting gift. But you are no longer welcome here." She stared at him as though waiting for the punchline. When it didn't come, she spun on her heel and walked out, fast, flustered, her poise in tatters. Her friend scrambled behind her, wide-eyed and silent. As the doors closed behind them, soft applause broke out in the hall. Not loud, not showy, but steady and sincere. Not for drama, not for spectacle, but for justice. And in the kitchen, Amara let out a single breath, long and slow. Not of relief, not yet, but of readiness. Because the next part wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming. Something even more powerful, her voice. The lounge adjacent to the grand dining hall was quiet, its atmosphere thick with a hush that came not from luxury but from tension. Velvet drapes framed the floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked Miami's golden skyline, but even the view felt dim beside the gravity of the moment inside. Vanessa Carlyle stood frozen just beyond the threshold, her manicured hand still hovering, near the back of the leather chair across from the man who had summoned her. Malcolm Brooks hadn't moved since she entered, but his stillness felt louder than any outburst could have. His gaze didn't waver. It held her in place with the weight of authority, built not just on wealth, but on wisdom earned through decades, of storms he'd weathered and won. And now he was here to weather this one for his daughter. Vanessa tried to recover her footing, though the soles of her confidence had already worn thin. "Mr. Brooks," she began, voice soft and honeyed. "This is all just a terrible misunderstanding. I came here expecting the five-star experience your hotel is known for, but instead, you delivered a public assault." Malcolm cut in, not unkindly, but with absolute clarity. You humiliated an employee. You mocked her, laughed at her, and when she turned her back, you threw wine on her. His voice was low, yet each syllable struck like a gavel. You did that, Miss Carlyle, and you did it in full view of people who don't forget cruelty easily. Vanessa blinked, her throat working to swallow a surge of panic. I didn't realize who she was. I didn't know she was... My daughter? Malcolm asked, rising slowly to his full height, towering over her like a verdict. That shouldn't matter. No one, no matter who they are, deserves to be treated the way you treated her. Not a waitress, not a janitor, not a CEO, no one. But since you insist on identities, let me clarify something for you. He stepped closer, his tone unshakable. Amara Brooks is not just my daughter. She is the soul of this hotel. She chose to work here to understand people like you, who wield wealth like a weapon. She wanted to learn humility from the ground up, and what you taught her tonight was exactly why that matters. The words landed with finality, and Vanessa staggered back a step as if struck by the weight of her exposure. Her cheeks burned a new shade, no longer the pink of embarrassment, but the red of a mask ripped off too late. She glanced around, the room as though someone, anyone, might interrupt, might save her. But no one came. Only Daniel stood silently near the door, arms crossed, eyes unreadable. There would be no lifeline tonight. I thought she was just... Vanessa's voice cracked under the strain. I mean, she looked like she worked here. She does, Malcolm replied, and she worked harder in one evening than most people do in a week. But that didn't give you the right to degrade her. You didn't see a person, Vanessa, you saw a uniform. And that's what makes this more than a misunderstanding. That makes it a choice. Outside the lounge, the dining hall was quieter than usual. Guests whispered in low tones, phones still flickering with viral clips and comments scrolling like wildfire. The world was watching. In a far corner, a waiter showed a guest a headline already surfacing on social media. Socialite drenches. Server in wine. Hotel owner steps in. Beneath it, screenshots of Vanessa's smirk, the splash of wine, and Amara's calm, dignified retreat were already being shared thousands of times a minute. Crystal Haven, known for discretion, was now the stage for a public lesson in humanity. Back in the lounge, Malcolm stepped away, signaling to Daniel with a nod. Escort Miss Carlyle from the premises. She is no longer welcome here. Vanessa's mouth opened, but nothing came out. The word blacklisted hadn't been said aloud, but it hung in the air all the same. For someone like her, whose world ran on invitations, appearances, and exclusivity, this exile from a flagship hotel was more than a social slap. It was a scarlet letter. She turned sharply, clutching her designer purse as though it could anchor her pride. "This isn't over," she muttered, though the words held no threat, only desperation. Daniel didn't respond. He simply opened the door and let her out. At that very moment, Amara emerged from the kitchen. She had changed into a fresh blouse, her hair pulled back tighter now, her face clean, but her eyes still simmering with the echoes of earlier shame. She hadn't asked for justice. She hadn't begged for backup. And yet here it was, justice, delivered not by viral mobs or hashtags, but by the one man who truly saw her. She paused when she saw Vanessa walking toward her, saw the flush of defeat on her face, the way her chin trembled though she tried to keep it lifted. Vanessa couldn't meet her gaze. Her eyes darted away as she passed, heels clicking like a retreat drumbeat. The doors closed behind her and the hall exhaled. A few guests clapped quietly, unsure if it was appropriate but driven by a need to release something. Relief, perhaps, or admiration. Malcolm stepped forward into the room, and silence followed. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to let it be known, he said to no one and everyone. This hotel respects those who serve with grace. Titles do not matter. Behavior does. He turned then, locking eyes with Amara from across the room. A smile broke through the stern lines of his face. A father's pride, fierce and unapologetic. She gave a nod in return. No words were needed. Between them stood everything that had been tested tonight. Trust, dignity, and the choice to rise above. And though the moment belonged to them, the world outside had already taken notice. Social media was ablaze with clips and commentary. Influencers spinning think pieces, and former employees of Vanessa sharing their own stories. She hadn't just humiliated Amara, she had exposed herself, and the internet, as always, had receipts. But Amara didn't check her phone. She didn't bask in the vindication. She returned to her station, picked up a tray, and moved to refill a guest's glass of wine. This time with the steady hands of someone who knew exactly who she was. She wasn't just the daughter of a billionaire. She was someone who had been tested and hadn't flinched. And now, under the same chandelier light that had seen her soaked in shame, she stood radiant, unwavering, and deeply, unapologetically human. By sunrise, Crystal Haven's opulent halls had returned to their polished stillness. The clinking glasses, murmured gossip, and trailing echoes of the previous night had all faded into the polished marble and velvet drapes. Except online. On social media, the storm was just beginning. A video taken by a diner, grainy but damning, had captured the entire humiliation of Amara Brooks in under 90 seconds. The sound of Vanessa Carlisle's voice, sharp and entitled, cut through, the footage like a blade. "Maybe that'll teach you to pay attention," followed by the unmistakable splash of wine. The video had gone viral within hours. By the time Amara stepped into the staff entrance just after 9 that morning, it had racked up over 3 million views on X, TikTok, and YouTube combined. Inside the break room, her co-workers greeted her with a silence unlike before. Not awkward, but reverent. Jamal stood first, offering her a fresh coffee. "You sure about being here today?" he asked, voice low. Amara nodded, tying her apron with practiced ease. "Why wouldn't I be?" she said with a small smile. "The uniform didn't change." "Overnight, neither did I." Her words were simple, but they settled over the room like a pledge. She wasn't here to revel in attention. She was here to work, as she always had. Yet the hotel was not the same. Guests now greeted her with newfound warmth, some with cautious respect, others with visible admiration. A middle-aged couple from Chicago stopped her mid-shift just to shake her hand. "We saw the video," the woman whispered, eyes shining. "You handled yourself with such grace. I hope our daughter grows up with your kind of strength." Mara smiled, thanked them, and moved on. She didn't linger in praise. She had tables to serve, glasses to fill. And while the world outside might now see her as the billionaire's daughter, she refused to let that change her. In the lobby, luxury still whispered through every marble panel and crystal lamp. But there was something new in the air, an awareness. Staff members stood a little taller. Guests watched a little more closely, not for scandal, but for meaning. Because the video hadn't just exposed Vanessa Carlisle's cruelty, it had reminded people that behind every apron and tray was a human being worthy of respect. The hotel had received hundreds of emails overnight, some condemning Vanessa, others praising Malcolm Brooks. But most were about Amara, her restraint, her composure, her refusal to sink to the level of someone determined to break her. Upstairs, in the executive office, Malcolm scrolled through the headlines with a sigh. Heiress humiliated server, only to discover her father was the hotel's billionaire owner. Power meets grace. How one woman's dignity sparked a viral reckoning. He hadn't planned to speak to the press, but a statement had been released anyway, crafted carefully. At Crystal Haven, we believe that dignity is not a luxury. It's right. We stand by our staff, always. The words had been his, and he meant them. But what struck him more than any headline was what he saw when he checked the hotel cameras again. Amara, walking through the dining hall, still working, still listening, still pouring coffee with that same thoughtful poise. She had faced a public shaming, been defended by a father she never asked to step in, and become the center of a media firestorm overnight. And yet, here she was, unchanged. Not a victim, not a spectacle, just a woman doing her job with unwavering grace. By early afternoon, the backlash against Vanessa had hit full force. Her Instagram went dark, brand partnerships were quietly severed, a former assistant posted, a thread recounting years of verbal abuse. A fashion label released a statement denouncing her behavior. The image she'd cultivated, polished, desirable, untouchable, crumbled beneath the weight of her own arrogance. Justice, it seemed, had gone digital. And yet Amara remained untouched by it. She didn't gloat. She didn't post a reaction or tweet a victory. She simply moved forward. When a guest tried to slip her $100 tip with a wink and the words for going viral, she politely declined. "I'm not a moment," she said. "I'm a person." That line would later be quoted across Twitter, praised as poetic. But to her, it was just the truth. She had no interest in becoming a symbol of something she didn't believe in. Revenge. What mattered to her was the quiet kind of power, the kind that didn't require an audience. Later that evening, after the dinner rush, Amara stepped onto the balcony behind the service wing. The sky was streaked with the colors of a fading Miami sunset, coral, gold, violet. She leaned on the railing, letting the breeze cool her skin. The air smelled faintly of salt and distant music. She thought about how easy it would have been to quit, to retreat into the safety that her father's name could offer. But that would have meant surrendering everything she was building, and she wasn't ready to do that. Not now, not ever. Malcolm joined her quietly, standing beside her without speaking at first. After a moment he said, "You didn't have to come in today." She glanced at him, then back at the horizon. "Yes, I did," she said. "Because if I didn't, then she would have won." He nodded slowly, pride softening the tension in his brow. "The world's watching you now, you know." Amara smiled faintly. "Let them, as long as they see me for who I am." And that was the truth. She wasn't here for pity, or fame, or even redemption. She was here for herself, for the version of her who refused to be broken, who chose resilience over revenge, who believed that dignity wasn't something you were born with, it was something you fought to keep. And as the last rays of sunlight dipped below the skyline, Amara Brooke stood tall in her uniform. Wine stains long washed away, but her resolve etched deeper than ever. She didn't need to prove herself anymore. Not to Vanessa, not to strangers online, not even to her father. The world could say what it wanted. She knew who she was. And sometimes, that was the most radical justice of all. Thank you for staying with us through this powerful story of dignity, justice, and quiet strength. What did you think about Amara's choice to keep showing up with grace, even when no one expected her to? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below and let us know where you're watching from. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more true-to-life tales that reveal the power of character. Until next time, thank you for watching, and remember, respect speaks louder than status.